Well, tonight we're going to analyze The Americans pilot. So it's the pilot episode for it's episode 1, series 1 of The Americans. Anybody know what channel that was originally?
FX.
FX? They've got some good shows. All right, so very briefly, want to just get a real quick idea, a real quick outline in like 1 or 2 sentences of what The Americans is about.
The pilot show.
Yes, the one we are
All right.
analyzing. Yeah, no. The actual show that we're trying to do an analysis of for tonight.
It's actually about the complications of a marriage shown through
We're talking about the overall story. So the marriage might be down here in the relationship. So
Okay.
just focus on that one thread. Think of the they perspective. What are they doing? Who are they?
Russian spies sent to America as husband and wife.
Okay.
As sleeper agents.
Under the guise of husband.
Under the guise of
Sylvie.
Well, they were
Okay,
actually married.
And okay, the sleeper agents in U.S. Great. And what is specifically? What's the problem with that? If they're a sleeper, then but
There's now evidence or belief that they exist.
okay. So basically,
The FBI.
Well, they botched mission.
well,
sort
they're
of.
being hunted by the FBI. Okay, there you go. Now we have some
Happens to
conflict.
live across the street.
Oh, cool.
So they have to live somewhere.
All right. Who is the main character in this, or who are the potential main characters in this?
Philip.
Anybody know if it's one? I'm gonna put 2, but I don't know if it's 1 or 2 L's. And
Elizabeth.
You see that?
I don't know which of it. Z or T, it doesn't matter. And then, of course, are there, apart from those possible, are there any others? So we just have to sort of figure out which one is which.
Well, the Beeman, I don't know if you'd consider him a main character or the impact character, but he's like on the other side of the coin, that it's his baby to find these people. So.
And that would be up here, right? In the overall story. If he's part of the FBI trying to find the sleeper, that's the overall story.
Okay.
So we're not that we don't see him personally, or we don't. My guess is there will be episodes. I haven't seen any of the series, but there will be episodes where he will be the main character, and we will see the story through his eyes. So there's probably a lot of setting up of some of the supplemental characters or other key characters. But in this episode, it does not seem that he's that character. He seems more tied to what's going on in the bigger picture, right?
The Russian Colonel Timochev could be.
Could be what?
An impact character, in that he has an impact with the way he throws out the offering of the money and gets the idea out there pretty much throughout most of the
But
show.
isn't again
I would
that
agree.
isn't
I
that
would-
the whole
yes.
thing with the sleeper agent? Do we stay sleeper agent? Isn't that really the big issues? Do we remain sleeper agents or not? I mean, so he can out them if he's alive, if he was caught or brought, if he got away essentially and got to the FBI. So what is the key relationship between the two?
Marital spies.
Well, no, they're married.
It's a
Yeah.
marriage.
The relationship is that they are
Well,
spies, certainly,
yes.
but they're spies here. They're married here.
Yeah, even though it's
Although it's a forced marriage.
yeah, it's kind of a
It-
fake.
It was an arranged marriage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
But
So
by the end of
we can just say
It's a
arranged
professional
marriage.
marriage.
And so let's talk about who we think is the main character and who is the influence character and why. Whose shoes are we supposed to stand in?
I saw it as Philip, as the main character. When you see him struggling with the dilemma of whether to continue the mission or to be a traitor, to Russia, you see his turmoil, his inner turmoil back and forth. Like when he's running, you see his inner strife. He's expressing his emotions a little bit more. For me, you see it through his eyes.
Okay.
As a woman, did you see it through the woman's eyes? Or through the
Well, I
man's eyes?
saw her more what you call the steadfast. She
Yeah.
didn't.
She is
fluctuate
definitely, yeah.
during the
Yeah, and
pilot
that was
especially.
good.
So maybe it is him in the pilot.
Just
Yeah.
because
No, I'm
he's
just
from-
curious when
Yeah.
you watch.
Yeah.
Who you
no, I see
naturally-
them both.
Right,
I
yeah.
naturally go to.
Right.
with
The
that-
emphasis is very. They're very screen time wise. We get both. We get both backstories. We get there's a lot of it's very even handed, and I think that's again I think they partially do that because they're trying to draw in a wide audience and they're setting them up for subsequent episodes where we are either more into Elizabeth's world for a story or into Philip's story or some of the other characters. Any other? Is everybody okay with Philip being the main character, or?
Oh, I'm okay, but I still feel Elizabeth could be as well. So I'm
No,
interested to see where
okay.
you go with
I don't want to do what it. Let's not do what could be because you could write it either way.
Yeah.
What do we want? What do we see as it being in the one we just watched?
Okay.
That's because if you start getting into woulda, coulda, shoulda,
Yeah.
there is no wrong answer.
Right. Okay.
All right. So the answer to, and it's a really good point. The answer to all of these questions are what is. What do you see? Not maybe what you wanted to see, what it could have been, what it should have been. No, what is it? So, if we have Philip as the main character and now Elizabeth would be the influence character, and let's just pop right over to the main character. Main character resolve, change, or steadfast. One of the things that's important is the relationship between the main and influence character is that one will change and one will remain steadfast. And it was very clear in this story which was which. I mean, because they explored both very evenly and very clearly, too. What do we have as our main character, change or steadfast, and why? Give examples. You were talking about Elizabeth being as a steadfast character, but we need to know, how do we know? What are you using as a measurement? Basically, the resolve is they are at a certain place at the beginning of the story, they are at a certain place at the end of the story. If they are fundamentally the same worldview, not that they can grow, but fundamentally they're sort of seeing the world the same, that's a steadfast character. If they have essentially adopted the position of the other person, that's a changed character. They've switched their paradigm, yeah.
I'll argue Philip's steadfast in that case. I believe he starts out wanting a real family and a real marriage. And he's more steadfast in that at the end. And she changes to wanting a real marriage.
Can you give some examples?
Yeah, she lies to protect him at the end. She lies for him. He kills her for the real marriage. He kills Timoshev for the real marriage, which is what he wants. So she definitely, I think she comes around to his.
I think in terms of the emotional argument, I believe that the author's intent is to show her as a changed character in the scene where she, they're under strict orders not to talk about, their lives prior to their training, and she at the beginning of the story, she follows orders to the D. She is an absolute perfect.
Mission first.
Yeah, mission
Everything
first,
mission
country
first,
first.
mission first, country first.
And he's like, well, maybe family should come first. Maybe so he's not so hardline, but the fact that she actually, betrays her original orders of not discussing the prior life. She discusses, she tells them where she was born and what her original real name was. And I believe just it, in terms of the emotional argument, not the logistical argument, in terms of the emotional argument, I believe that's intended to show a shift on her part.
And also when she lies to protect her husband.
Okay, yeah,
She
to the
lies
general.
protect her
To the
husband.
general. Yeah.
I think that she's steadfast. I think she's always been
You,
mission
mean, you,
first.
you think he's
Elizabeth,
okay.
Elizabeth is steadfast and Philip is changed.
Okay.
I think Elizabeth is steadfast. She starts out mission first. She ends up mission first, despite the little bump that was mentioned about her betraying it.
But be careful.
Yes.
In the overall story, they're not going to change. The sleeper agents are sleeper agents, period. Everybody pretty much in the overall story is what they are. I mean, that's just the nature of the argument is that here are the different approaches to resolving a problem, which one works and which one doesn't. Which of all of these is the best one, is a way to think of it. In the relationship, if this is an arranged marriage, all right? Or this is a professional marriage, or whatever you want to call it, a marriage of convenience, a marriage of, whatever. And so if the change in steadfast is going to be in the personal area, not in the business area. So it's going to be about who they are personally. It's that you are their part of the story. So kind of keep the spy part, I think, if you can keep it separate, you can't completely extract it, but if you think about their relationship as their arranged marriage, and they, at the beginning, where are they in the concept of the arranged marriage at the beginning of the story and at the end, and if there is some development, which one of them moves, and and I don't normally ask this, but is the relationship something that is growing stronger, or is it falling apart?
I think another great example is at first he comes home, she's chopping stuff, he wants to engage her physically, sexually. She's having none of it. At the end, she initiates sex with him.
Right, well, she was off with business, seducing someone for their information. We both see them doing their work. Him going and pretending he's the counterintelligence person and interviewing the peon that's in the actual FBI counterintelligence office, and her sleeping her way to getting whatever information it is that she needs that she gets. So we see them doing their spy stuff. So they're active spies. I mean, not just a sleeper cell, but they are active, but at a pretty lightweight level. And clearly in the overall story, it's about, okay, this is all suddenly ratcheted up to a completely different level because of what happened with the capturing of that guy, and his information that he provided the FBI that there were all these sleeper agents in there. You guys, you got to get your act together. Yeah. But on the personal side, when we're looking at Philip, particularly just talked about Philip. So, where is he personally? Was he dealing with personally, and then where is he at the end? And if you feel like it's a lot stronger to make an argument for Elizabeth, then perhaps maybe she's actually the main character. I mean, usually it's easier you can identify with them, and you have a better understanding of what they're going through if you have, if you're identifying with them.
So he's steadfast at the beginning. He wants the real family. He wants the real marriage.
You can't be steadfast at the beginning.
Sorry, I'm not saying he's steadfast at the beginning. I'm saying he's steadfast.
Oh, he's steadfast because okay.
At the beginning, he wants the real family. He wants the real marriage, the real relationship. He gives up the chance to get out of there to protect the marriage and the relationship.
I thought his argument was we can save the marriage if we throw away the spies by basically giving up,
Taking the money.
by taking the money.
He knows that's not true with her. He knows that'll never give him a real marriage.
Well, he
Will
knows
is-
with her,
Yeah.
right?
Well, Will is doing something emotionally for her that shows that he really cares for her. And so he becomes more steadfast. He becomes steadfast in that regard.
Okay.
I see
So-
that approach of him, then he's giving up the kids, because it's very clear that under their arrangement, the kids are never to be involved, and if they're never to be involved, then that means eventually, if they get discovered as spies, then they lose the kids. And the kids are going to know, so that's giving up the family. So it's keeping the wife and giving up the family.
I think he's changed.
Okay.
Because I think everything that they're talking about, what she's doing is steadfast. The whole thing with spies, it's all very rigid, and he's always fighting it. At all these different points, he's fighting it. He's breaking out, he's getting noticed, he's doing things, he's wanting real love, not an arranged marriage. He wants change.
And doesn't he want that at the end?
Yeah, can you not?
But if you want it at the beginning and you want it at the end,
That doesn't work.
that's kind of a flat line.
Okay.
That's kind of the definition of steadfast. whereas the argument that was made before was she doesn't want, she's business,
Yeah.
and at the end, she's not all business. That she's opening up herself as opposed to her, her character. She's playing a role. He's playing a role, but he's also not just playing a role. He really he can't seem to hide who he is except when he's doing his secret agent thing, right? Because the whole reason he goes and beats up that older guy who has the 16-year-old or whatever, the creep who was hitting on his daughter, because he can't let that stuff go. She certainly seems to be able to separate those kinds of things very, very readily. But at the end, she is the one who seems to be crossing a line into, I always do what I'm told, I'm always doing what I'm told. She is now behaving a little bit more like him, where she's lying for him now, and she is, she was going to, she walked up to the line, and then she said, do whatever you want, because she didn't want to cross that line, right? She didn't want to say, okay, I will throw everything else away. But what she did do, which was a lot closer than anything before, she said, I will be neutral. I won't push it one way or the other, which is a real strong loosening for her. Now, he, on the other hand, because he got a sense that there was some history that he didn't know about that was clearly very negative, and he's very protective of his family, so there was only really one action that he could take, which was to, kill the guy, which is kind of the same action that he took with the one who was creeping out his daughter. Whereas at the end, she's the one who opens up. So I think that's it's a really odd dynamic, because you've got a very rich story going on with lots of things being set up, which is always the problem with a pilot or the first in a series. There are a lot of other things that are usually going on. This is kind of nice because it focuses mostly on the story and then just does a little bit of setup, as opposed to spending most of the time. Has anybody seen Suicide Squad?
Yeah. I ended up leaving.
Yeah, because it spends almost all of the time setting up for other movies and has very little time set. There is no story.
Yeah.
So there's an excuse for why they're together, but there's actually no story that holds them together. So it's just like random acts of mayhem. And so that's the exact opposite of what you want to do. The way they did this, it's granted it's not as grandiose in the terms of the number of characters they're trying to introduce, but they introduced quite a few characters whose stories I imagine we probably will get to see in the next 5 years of 5 series.
Isn't it also kind of important that to point out that in episodic television, that usually in any given episode, it's not 180-degree change. It's just sort of a loosening up of one's resolve, which is the equivalent of change. But
right.
not the same kind of full arc that you'd have in a 2-hour movie.
Right.
because
Right.
you still need to kind of push the reset button for the next episode because to keep your premise alive.
Right. You can't have your character, your principles changing every single time because that just doesn't work. That's why you end up having other characters having the subjective story, and your characters are in it, but they may not play the emotional center of it always. Okay, so I'm just going to put a dotted line for under steadfast. Let's not choose that. Let's just see if the other things we choose maybe will indicate that, because there's an awful strong argument that's been made both directions. All right. Now, how about main character approach? This is Philip's approach. Is he a doer or a beer, and why? A doer is someone that, for personal issues, prefers to change the world around them, prefers to do things. And a beer is someone who prefers to change themselves, to change their behavior. I think this is a pretty easy one. We have some pretty specific examples for both characters on them dealing with personal issues. But for Philip,
As an example of a doer, when he was going after the creepy guy with the daughter.
yeah, that basically, and then also the decision to how to handle the spy, their old boss, essentially, his old trainer, her old trainer. When it was a personal issue, you saw how he behaved differently than when it was a professional issue, right? So yeah, he does clearly seem to be a doer. And I think the attacking the guy with the barbecue skewer was pretty much a doer's way of dealing with his daughter's disgust at being creeped out by the guy. All right, problem-solving style is linear or holistic. Is Philip a person who looks at cause and effect or connects the dots, or is he someone that looks to finding balance or to create imbalance through sort of a holistic thinking, problem solving, otherwise known as male mental sex and female mental sex, which isn't connected necessarily to their gender, but often is, but isn't necessarily.
I think I answered the question by looking at her as the opposite of him. I think she's really linear, and maybe that's because of seeing all the episodes a couple of times. And
I don't have the advantage of that, so I can only say we look at the examples that fall into this. So knowing that, what examples do you see in this that seem to indicate that he is holistic?
Just the whole idea that he is getting tired of doing this for his government and just wants to live a normal life. Wouldn't that be considered sort of a holistic approach to the world instead of, I was trained to do this and I'm going to do this for the rest of my life, instead of taking a step back and seeing the big picture.
Move him, maybe. Think about how he is with his family. Or both of them. But think of him, how he is with his family.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
For approach, it was doer or beer with regards to the personal side. For problem solving, still again to the personal side.
Well, it's the main character, so
Right.
It's about the main character. Right. It's not about the protagonist or antagonist, whatever his function is, his role in the bigger picture. This is him personally. This is not a preference like doer or beer. This is just sort of baked in. How does he problem solve?
He reacts.
That is the expression of it.
Yeah.
But does he react based on seeing how things are connected, or by looking at steps, like cause and effect, Or does he look at how things are connected by relationships and balance or imbalances?
I think it's
Cause and
linear. I think
effect, yeah.
it's a fairly instant
Okay.
instant reaction.
So give me some examples.
The one with he sees the guy who he thinks has been maybe on his daughter.
All right.
And he
So
just
tell
goes-
me what the cause is, and then tell me what the effect is. I think it's an excellent example. I think you have it labeled wrong. Well, no. The reason is that you're putting in a lot of steps that aren't there.
Yeah.
By maiming him, what does that? What effect? What caused that effect? I mean, how does that affect the end result of it? In other words, what is that? How's that the goal?
It sends an instant message. It
To
stops
whom?
the guy from ever doing it again. The guy that he did it.
Do you think he did it because of his daughter?
No.
Right. There's
Yeah.
no expectation this guy was ever going to see his daughter again.
Right.
That would be cause and effect.
Okay.
He sees this guy creeping around the neighborhood. That's cause and effect. He tracks him down because he's trying to rebalance things.
Right.
He sees there's a predator for young girls. I have a young girl that is my daughter. I'm going to make the world a better place for all the young girls by removing this negative from the equation.
Right.
Rebalancing. That is a holistic way of solving the problem. Because there's no expectation that he would ever run into the daughter. That would be a cause and effect type of a thing.
There's an interesting scene, which I'm not totally sure how to interpret it in these terms, but when he goes to the school function where they bring in the astronaut, all right, and they're singing the national anthem, there's all this rah patriotic stuff going on, and then there's the camera zooms in on him, and he's clapping, and there's this consideration going on, and I believe that preceded his
His son was whispering in his ear right before that.
Yeah, what is his son whisper?
We don't know. We don't know.
Okay.
It was just there was something. Yeah, it was a very strange moment.
Mhm.
See, if he is a holistic main character, it would explain why we're having a hard time identifying him as is he the main character, because men have a hard time identifying with holistic thinkers, or linear thinkers have a hard time with holistic thinker main characters, which would make it difficult for us to peg him as the main character, even though we kind of have a sense that he's the main character. And I think that may be what was going on there. She is clearly a linear thinker. I mean, it's a Mulder-Scully kind of relationship, right? I mean, and that's the same thing. They did the same thing, linear and holistic swap, right? Not as exaggerated, but it also, I think, plays to the agent across the street who thinks there's just something off about this guy.
Right.
I think that they were playing to, whether or not they have Dramatica, there is this quality about him that makes him different and makes him not demonstrably different, just something different. Now, his wife was, made fun of him, etc. The agent's wife made fun of him. But I think that was intentional. And if, in fact, he is a holistic thinker, that would feel right, even though you couldn't say, oh, here is the gift, here's what's giving it away. Does that sound?
Yeah. Now, this may stray into OS territory, but I think it was another example of holistic relationship or rebalancing is when he takes on taking Rob to the hospital, the guy who got stabbed, his colleague, and that put at risk he was willing to sacrifice the linear effect of the mission, which was getting the Colonel Timoshev to the Russian boat on time, for the sake of the relationship with Rob and balancing out that Rob put his life on the line and now he was going to try and save Rob to the extent that he could.
Yeah, I mean that certainly fits into that. It's one of those why is Ripley going back to save the cat moments. You know, there are like priorities of things. It's much more logical that you're going to try to save a friend, but it was still one of those. You know, you've got a real serious deadline here. Why are you making this detour? So the known risk, but yeah, I think that does, and him following up with it.
That's right. He did follow him.
You know, again, he's really concerned about relationships.
Is the problem-solving style consistent in the OS with the main character through line? Is it always that way?
I mean, as the main character himself will always be that way. Now, the roles of the function as an agent probably will cater to that, because if he doesn't, it's not going to
Won't feel right.
No.
Okay.
I mean, we all can do both, but when it's sort of the thing that defines the main character perspective, that's where it's most important, because that's the part you can't really get past, because that's where your blind spots are, and that sort of determines how you think. So that's going to be pretty consistent. All right, story driver. Do actions drive decisions, or decisions drive actions, and why?
Well,
Decisions are made by the Russian government, so they're
Go with what you
giving
see, because you can.
well, they're doing what they have to do based on the decision that was
Did
made.
we see what the decision that was?
Well, their action to kidnap this guy
That we saw.
was based on, but they didn't decide to do it. Didn't somebody, like a previous decision, make
But
them do it?
But we didn't see. The thing is, when you look at a story is completely artificial. It has a beginning and it has an end. Nothing before the beginning is relevant. Nothing after the end is relevant. It's pretty much a compact. So at some point you're going to say, there's an inciting event. That if this did not happen, nothing would follow. So if they did not capture the Russian defecting spy,
They missed the boat.
no,
They missed
no. But if they didn't capture him,
All right. Okay.
I mean, missing a boat also, but and the guy getting stabbed, right? But once they caught him, it was like catching a tiger by the tail.
And they were vulnerable. He could have.
Well,
given their names.
no more than anything else is it changed the whole game. This guy the next morning was going to the FBI to basically tell the FBI all of his secrets, including naming names, right? But them capturing him stopped that. It changed the game. Now, it did two things. One, it pretty much let the FBI know, in fact, there is this going on, because he got, something's going on U.S. soil, and we don't know who did it. And the one thing this guy was going to be telling us is that there are people on U.S. soil that we don't know about. And it's like, well, okay, so the jig is up. We also have the FBI guy moves next door. That kind of changes how things are going to be, what's happening. Because they can't, killing their hostage. That was a game changer. You can't. Decisions were made after that based on the fact that they killed him. I don't know.
Well, and then the question, I agree with those particular signposts, but what would I'm trying to figure out what the concluding incident is, because it seemed that the plot sort of ended on a note that Reagan just signed an executive order. Which sounds like a decision. We are now at war.
It is. That's when the OS stopped. The overall story kind of stopped at that point. with the FBI and the sleeper agents, that pretty much wasn't that, or that was at 3/4 of the way through.
Well,
I can't
when the
remember.
guy
That was the end,
when he
right.
killed, he killed the defector. They dumped his body, but I guess they didn't find the body. But what they did was started something about the John Doe at the hospital that led them to believe that.
Well, it was a contributing factor that he's either somebody who's off the radar, or he's somebody who's off the radar because he's a spy. Maybe that's why. And it was related to all of this other stuff, but they don't know which one it is. Yes.
Make an argument for decision. Because if they carry out the mission and make the drop, nothing ever changes. But the decision to deviate from the mission and drop the guy at the hospital is really what kicks everything into gear. And then the decision at the end of her not turning her husband in.
But that.
Well, it is an icy note, but I think it also serves. That's what I think you have to do in a pilot is just something and stuff. I think it also serves the overall story of, okay, everything's fine. And that's the final decision. And then his decision to we're getting out of here. I'm taking this guy, and we're turning. I mean, I think that's a huge turn.
But that's for him. But that's not for the story. The story, that scene, the part in that one is when he kills him. That's what changes everything. That changes the overall story. The driver is primarily connected to the overall story. It affects everything, but it's primarily connected to the overall story.
Right, and that puts us into the third act. But but it also occurs to me that the very end point of the episode is that the next door neighbor breaks into the garage and does not find a body. And the
Right, that's what it ends.
and the Matthew Reese character does not shoot him, which would suggest, but it's one of those things where like in episodic television, it's like you may have won the battle, but you haven't necessarily won the war.
Right.
So at least for now, we have not been exposed.
Right.
So the fact that he did not find a body, I think, may be the concluding action of basically a concern of not being exposed.
Yeah, I mean
Decides
that.
not to kill him.
Right, and not
Well, but
blowing
you think,
things up,
see,
not
it's easy-
elevate, not
It's easier to
escalating
say
things.
that she lied for him because he killed the guy, sort of to protect her honor, because it was clearly seemed to be that's why he killed. It had nothing to do with work. It had to do with that, and I think that more than anything else is what made her reconsider her priorities and why she would lie for him.
I think his decision, to go with Timoshev and blow it all up, his overall story.
His decision to go where?
To take Timoshev's offer and blow the whole thing up and
Go to Stan
turn it in.
Timoshev is what he's talking about.
Take the $3 million.
The temptation
That's
that.
Yeah,
Remember, he released them from the trunk and was going to take them, and then Elizabeth.
I said
Oh,
that's
the
what
garage
really sets the rest in motion.
Yeah, but even that deliberative moment is blocked by the fact that she had taken the carburetor out of the car or something like that, but what really,
the reason that happened is that the FBI moved next door. Because the FBI had not moved next door, he would not have considered walking the guy across the street and giving himself up. I mean, that is all that deliberative, all the deliberation that was going on in that act really had to do with the fact that, oh my gosh, we have not only an FBI guy, but somebody who's probably looking for us right now, which is confirmed in the very last scene. And he knows he's looking for him, and so it's like there's no question that they're on the same page now. I mean, that's why I would say action seems to drive this episode.
Yeah, that's all.
Which is all we're really focusing on, because again, these kinds of things can switch episode to episode, and that's how you keep it fresh, and so you don't want it to be the same every time.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
Because this is a pilot, I had problems with the story goal versus a series goal versus the thing, so I kind of settled on.
Well, have you seen the series?
No.
Okay, well then don't worry about the series goal.
Well, because where does the story goal end?
Well, let's
I-
wait, we're not there yet.
Okay.
We're going
All right.
to get to the story goal very shortly,
Okay.
but not yet. You're just one step too early. All right, so the story limit, time lock or option lock, and please give an example of why you think it's one or the other.
It's an option lock because they run out of options of what to do with Timoshev once he's dead.
Or dead or alive. Yeah.
Once he's dead, that's no. It's time lock has to do with the overall story,
Right.
and it also has to do with what's going to bring about the climax. So we've got sleeper agents in the U.S. being hunted by the FBI. What are the options? Who are and so sort of which side? Who do you think? This is actually sort of pursuant to the question that's been coming up online a lot about protagonists and antagonists. All right. So let's just go to the issue of the goal. What does anybody have an idea of what they think the goal? Looking at it in terms of sleeper agents in the U.S. being hunted by the FBI, there's some very specifics within that. What do we think the episode goal is? The story goal is?
To not get caught.
No, the episode goal is to get Timoshev.
To carry out the mission.
Alive.
To stop the mission.
Okay. And the mission is what?
To deliver the defector to Moscow.
Well, that is over at the first at the first inciting event,
No, but there might be
or
more
practically.
orders of what to do with them.
Well, we don't know that. Okay, so
They're waiting for more orders.
but the goal is something you generally need to know what the goal is at the head. So the goal is to keep him from the FBI from getting the rogue spy, right? The turncoat, the defector.
That's the
Isn't that sort of the goal? Well, that's assuming we're assuming then that story is being told from the spy's point of view. Is that a fair assessment?
the Russian spies.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
they're all
because the whole
spies.
world-
Yeah, they're all spies, right?
The whole world is described from their viewpoint, because from the very beginning, you hear on TV that Reagan just got inaugurated, the hostages have been returned, and it's like that one of the Russians even says the country's being run by a madman. All the parameters have changed, and it's like do or die now for us. So
Right, but we also do see it from the FBI point of view. We're in the FBI war room or whatever.
Yeah.
So the reason I ask this is that I want to make sure we establish where the perspective is, because it'll make everything else a lot easier. Does this seem to be? Let's skip this for a minute. The story outcome, success or failure. What would you say? What does it seem like? Just gut feeling.
Failure.
Okay, remember this is the logical assessment, not the emotional assessment. Okay, failure. And so
I saw it as the goal was to either for the FBI to obtain Timoshev or the KGB to obtain Timoshev. Neither one of them got it. It's a failure, and he was not able to do anything with Timoshev himself.
both of those things cannot coexist. Those aren't two sides of one coin. Those are two different coins. So you can't use both of them and say because both of them fail, it's not true. It's either the FBI gets them or the FBI doesn't get them, or the KGB gets them, or they keep them from the FBI. One gets them and one the FBI gets them or doesn't. Think of it that way, because the goal is that the guy's going to the
That's
FBI.
I can agree with.
What?
The FBI gets them or doesn't.
Fine,
Well, but the
And
reason
they don't get
but is it? Are we on the side of we want the FBI to get him, or we don't want the FBI to get him?
we don't.
If we're looking at it from the
This is-
NC, or from the Russian side, then we don't want the FBI to get them.
Right. So is that where we feel that the story is? That's what the author's intent was. we are looking at people who are trying to keep this guy from the FBI.
Yeah.
Okay, really important, because once you establish that baseline of perspective, then we know that this story is a success, correct?
Correct.
They successfully keep him away from the FBI. Now, it's not a rousing success, because obviously they really wanted to send him back and all that stuff, but the FBI didn't get him, and that was ultimately the goal. All right? So,
And they kept
Well,
it
killing-
hidden
killing
from
him
the
was-
FBI guy.
Killing was kind of Plan B all along anyway.
Yes.
Because the whole point was that his secrets to not be exposed.
the
to
mission
US.
the mission was for him not to expose his information to the FBI.
Yes,
Right.
or whatever they call
We'll see.
Well, what the
Just to keep a lid on their identity, regardless of.
well, it was all of everything. He had all this information. They wanted to keep what he knew from the FBI, either by whisking him away, which was the ideal, or by keeping him away, either killing him or just sequestering him. All right. So now that we know this is a success, so we are looking at effectively the protagonists are the KGB people, right? The Russians. In the option lock, what are the options that they're running out of and trying to essentially on their way to the goal? What's going to force them to have to, play their last card? And the last card was her meeting with her boss. That was the crime. That was essentially the internal crisis. Where she said it's all my fault, blah blah blah. But what is it that led up to that? What are the options? Okay, we can send them off on the boat. Oh, that one's out the window really fast. We can just keep them at home. Oh, that one's not going to work.
Right. We can build a room under the laundry room or something.
Wine cellar.
Wine cellar.
Yes.
Yeah.
That doubles as a
Torture chamber.
And then we
Turn
can
him in.
we can turn him in, right?
It's not gonna be-
We can turn ourselves in, turn him in, fail, and that was not really shown to be an option, but it was an option. It was possible to bring to a close. We could kill him
What she
and
wants.
then dispose of the body, and then deal with. And once we do that, we basically have to deal with whatever fallout's going to happen.
But to erase the evidence that he was over there.
Right. So once those, pretty much the body, getting rid of the body was the last step before it, and erasing all evidence of him, which was tested in that very last scene. When the snoop comes in and looks, it's like, oh, they got away with it. Success. So the very last thing we saw was, oh, okay, this is successful. He did not nail them.
He didn't get caught.
Right. The FBI is none the wiser.
For now.
Well, no. For this episode. For this story. Okay, so that's why it's important. You need to identify, if any of these, you want to see exactly the instances, the examples that occur within the story, because it's really easy to make an argument either way just on the merits of the choices, because they're all good. They're all good choices. It just doesn't necessarily mean that's what's in the story. Okay, now we want to identify...
Do you want to do good, bad?
oh, yeah, I guess we do. Do you want me to do good, bad? All right. Story judgments, good or bad. So this is for Philip. And this has to do with sort of an emotional assessment. At the end of the story, for Philip, is his angst worked out, or does it still exist?
Still exists.
And example, let's
That for the moment he doesn't have to kill his neighbor.
that's spy. That's not Philip. That's the Russian spy. That was him doing his job. That was not him in his relationship with his wife and his personal issues. So this is this is the touchy-feely part,
So is it good because he's
not the protagonist antagonist part.
Okay.
Is it good because he's getting to have like closer to a real marriage?
You're supposed to be telling me, not asking me.
It's good because he's having a real marriage.
And how do we know? Yeah, and how do we know?
Because they're having sex.
Yes. The only thing they didn't show was the big smile on his face, practically. You know, I mean, you already saw that smile a couple times throughout. You know, right at the beginning of the movie. It's not, but the film or the series episode. You know, you saw when she's having sex with him, what the guys are like, and the first thing he's sort of implies is that he'd like to have sex, and it was clearly. Niet. And then it's also not an accident that the scene right before it was their honeymoon, their arrival, and it's like, I'm not ready for that. So it's like, okay, that's where they came from. Obviously, they loosened up, they had kids, so something happened, at least twice.
He didn't think she was attracted to him, and then she is attracted.
Right. Or she did her acting. We don't know, but it seemed to be she was relaxed enough to start to open up to him. And I think more than anything else, because he was interested in the family, that is probably seemed to be probably a better. It's like better or worse. I don't know that it's good or bad in this instance, because again, it's an episode, so it's an incremental step. But it did seem better. It's not a happy ending, but it's also not really a bittersweet ending because they got away with it and they're still a unit and they're tighter than they were before.
So the one thing that for the success or failure of the story outcome, her boss considers it a failure and she apologized that it's my fault. So those are the two things that I thought made it a failure feel good.
Well, I think what you're going to find is it's a success story, but it probably has a pretty big cost. There's probably a big negative associated with it, like she's probably lost some sort of face or some, she's sort of got the personal demerits kind of thing. I think it's not a Pyrrhic victory, where the costs are higher than the success, but I think it's severely diminished. It could have been this good, and it's this good, I think, but it's not bad.
So are the costs commonly how they do the tags at the end of these TV shows then?
No, I don't. I can't speak to that. I don't watch enough. I don't analyze enough television to tell you how it's structured as a rule. Costs and dividends are the way that you modulate the success and failure, how good or how bad, and how success and failure. That's how you sort of you throw some good things in, you put some crap in there, and it makes it, rather than being black and white, it gets it much more colorful and much more textured, and it makes it feel less binary.
But in shows like this one, that's very serialized.
Yeah.
In a particular episode, you may win the battle, but you haven't necessarily won the war, and so that's why and how they use costs and dividends will vary. But I think that's what you're seeing is that it's not a total victory. It's just for now they won.
Right.
It won in a very
the war
small
isn't
way.
over. The last scene is basically just saying, don't go off your guard.
Yeah, you won, but you cost
Right.
you this.
This is the beginning of something, not the end of something.
Just a question, because I'm still learning it. The story judgment, is that related very strongly to our main character?
Yes.
Right.
Even though it's a story, but you can sort of say overall, and that's why I'm saying this is probably better rather than worse.
Yeah.
As opposed to good.
Yeah. So is it fair for me to ask myself, is Philip's journey good or bad? As
Does
a story
it
judgment
leave
question.
him in a place where there's less angst?
Yeah.
That's really what it's asking.
Yeah.
And if there's less angst or no angst, well, no angst is great.
Yeah.
You're not going to get that at the beginning of a series. Otherwise, no more series.
Yeah. Pretty boring series.
Or no more him as the main character in the series. But if it's better, then that's good.
Right.
You know, it's going the right direction.
Yep.
Because I'll guarantee you, over the series, it's probably not. It's just probably as equally or more often bad than it is good. Especially, you know, if you do an arc of a series, you're going to have that big trough where everything looks like it's terrible, just like an individual episode might be. Okay. And yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to skip that. I just was sort of skipping it. Now what we want to do is we want to identify the 4 through lines by assigning them to the chart. And anybody have any ideas where we want to put either the main character or the overall story, or actually any of them? But
Overall story is a situation.
And why?
Because of what I've mentioned before about all the rules have changed because Reagan is president. It's the height of the Cold War. And that's the situation. They find themselves in a much more...
Who?
The spies find themselves, or pretty much everybody finds themselves, because the rules have all changed now. So that would be a situation for everybody to have to deal with.
Okay. All right. Do you have any other like examples within the story itself?
Well, she also said at one point that they have a madman in the White House now, and
Well,
they
that's one
want
of the
us all
questions.
dead. Yeah,
And a live
she
body in
feels-
their trunk.
Yeah, but she feels that they want to kill the country, that they want Russia, you know, so she feels even more, I have to do this.
Okay.
Well, go ahead. From the inciting incident, they're in a stuck situation of having the hostage in their trunk, and they have to deal with it. And
May I make a suggestion just for the sake of argument? Fine what you're saying.
Sure.
Just say the Russian spies or
Russian
the FBI
spies,
rather than they.
Yes.
Because there's a number of theys in this.
the Russian spies they're stuck with a hostage in their trunk because the boat, which they were supposed to drop the hostage off, is gone, and the FBI is circling around them, and they still have the hostage. So until they deal with that one way or another, they're stuck in the situation.
Okay.
I would put a situation for the main character. It seems like he's the one who's stuck in the situation. If you use that word stuck, we're sort of seeing what this show seems to me like it's what's it like to be sleeper agents in America. That's the situation that they're exploring in this particular episode. From the main character's perspective.
How is he different than how is Philip different than Elizabeth in that instance? Being stuck.
Well, he's stuck in a fake marriage, and she's more fixed attitude. What I see is like the mission-driven Russian agent, and he's sort of this. He's waffling his attitude as to his situation. Does he want to stay in a situation, or does he want to change the situation?
A situation. When you have a problem with a situation, it's always a problem until you're out of it. It's not a choice, do I want to switch in or out. It's like as long as you're in that situation, that's what stuck is. The fact that you can't get out is in fact the problem. So I'm not sure I would describe it the way you were, what you were describing didn't really quite fit with what he is, except as a spy, not so much as a father or a man who is kind of happy being an American right now. And the America seems to be an okay place. Everything's brighter here. They have air conditioning. I mean, there's lots. He seems to find all the positive things about America, and she seems to only be looking at I'm a KGB agent. So I'm not sure his situation. The only part of the situation it seems that he has a problem with is that I am a Russian spy and the FBI is looking for us, and may now know that we're even here because we've been living years and nobody had a clue we were here. Which would go a little bit more toward an OS of situation. If it was that, then your attitude, the thing you were talking about, where she's got this attitude and there's sort of that clash, that would put the relationship there, and that would be where the two of them would be sort of fighting over, which is sort of the priorities of beliefs. Is it family first or is it Russia first? Or business work first, or however you want to define that. I don't know. Anybody have alternatives? I think I was just trying to express that. I don't know that he's a situation. I can see her as a fixed attitude, though.
Yeah, my initial, impulse was to put her in the fixed attitude. But at the same time, I could also see a strong argument for putting the relationship story in the fixed attitude.
Well, that's what I said. It sort of satisfies both of the things you were talking about. The problem with whether or not I'm in my situation. Well, if it's an attitude issue, and in the relationship, I want this relationship. I want family first, and she's like, no, this is kind of we made certain agreements. The children can never know. I mean, all these things are just like they're rules, mental rules that they have to live by. That's an attitude thing. Those are fixed ideas that they must hold on to, and he's a little looser with it than she is.
So the argument I would make, if I was going to make one for him being in a situation, would go down a level to the concern, and he always seems concerned about the future. What is going to be happening? Where are we going to end up out of all of this?
But you could say that about the FBI as well. They're having that exact same conversation over the FBI, which would expand that out more to overall story. And you also hear a bit of that from the Russian, their handler at the end. You also get a bit of the training kind of stuff that's related to the defector is sort of situational. He's her boss. He was her trainer. I mean, some of that's her stuff. Well, are there any other alternatives? Does everybody seem to be okay with having an overall story and possibly in situation? Because that would put him in activity, which is that's you see him do probably of anybody in the entire movie. He's doing most of the activity except for her sometimes, and we put her in psychology or manipulation. If that was the arrangement.
I don't know. When I first looked at it, for me, the OS or the relationship, I was like, the OS could be activity because, it's the spy games. And then, the psychology of, their relationship of the arranged marriage and what it's like to be in this.
They're together, they're playing a role. They're developing plans. They talk about changing their nature, as in, maybe instead of just, playing this role, maybe we should actually become Americans,
right. And then you could flip it as the overall story could be one of those, psychology manipulation, because it's spy games and it's playing a role of spy. And
well, we don't see that in this. That's the one thing I would argue about that. We don't see that in this episode. I am absolutely certain it's going to come up a lot in the series. But we don't see it because all we know right now is, think of it for a moment. Switch whose side we're looking at. Let's say we're looking at it from the FBI's side. All right? Because that would just be literally the flip side. There is something going on here. We have no clue. We have this guy who has disappeared. We don't know where he went. He said that there are these sleeper cells. We don't know. We don't even believe that they're even here. But it apparently seems like something's going on. And that's as far as they know. Until the very end where they get a directive, okay, now it's war. Boom. Suddenly the next episode, they're going to start doing some crap. All right? That would be my guess. I don't know what episode 2 looks like, but I'll bet the overall story moves into activity. Where there's going to be and it may even switch over to their private. I don't know if it consistently is from Philip and Elizabeth's perspective, but I imagine that the FBI is suddenly going to get very active. But they aren't in this one. They're trying to figure, it's like we've got a situation, a guy is missing. Until we know what's happened, we don't know, and then it's moot once that directive comes down. Because they can't really act. They don't know anything. They just know that this guy who is supposed to come in, who's never late, and then who seems to have been abducted. I mean, that's a situation, kind of a scenario. There's an abduction. When's it over? Oh, once we get the guy back, or he dies, or whatever.
Or we find his body, yeah.
Right. Which we don't really even get. They don't get that kind of closure. We do, because we're on the overall story that we are part of. We know what's going on, so we have all of that. So it does seem to fit pretty nicely. And it also, when you think about all the flashbacks to the Russian spies and how they got to be Russian spies and all of that, apart from the personal stuff, there's some, things that are relevant to their job that can easily be seen as consistent with what's going on in the overall story. But it really does seem to be a situation. There's just nothing happens. We've got a guy in our garage. When does that story ever? Well, he's dead and he's dumped. Okay, and we've cleaned up. And we passed the sniff test.
Right.
Right? Mm-hmm. No more problem. At that point, they are off the hook. They have been officially, unofficially inspected, and they passed. So that situation, as far as the Russian spies are concerned, is over. So I think that works nicely for this episode. I think that's probably why this one works well as a single story, because they said, let's keep the overall story simple. Let's not give it all the moving parts. We'll give our main character and our influence character all the moving parts, and we'll just keep the overall story simple. So that we can introduce all sorts of characters during it and make it interesting, but effectively the overall story is very, very straightforward. Okay? All right, so now I'm going to switch over to the screen. We may want to adjust your screen. And I'm going to answer.
We control the horizontal and the vertical.
I'm going to make the selections of the ones that we're really sure about. Okay, so I said door. Action. Option. Access. Good. And, I need to change the language. Do the new stuff. Situation. All right. And let us go to the theme browser. All right. So when we look at the next thing for us to do is to look at where we think the concerns are. What's the matter?
Nothing.
I know, it's like the same old, same old. And we have, in the overall story, the past, how things are changing, the future, and the present. For our main character, understanding, doing, obtaining, and learning or gathering information. Let's just stick with those for the moment. What do any of the, okay, I see where this is going. Down in the relationship, we have developing a plan, playing a role, changing one's nature, conceiving an idea, and then in the that was the influence character, and then in the relationship we have memory, impulsive responses, innermost desires, and contemplation. So for overall story, do we have any we can rule out, or any of them that seem to be juicier or better? And again, you can look at the layer beneath it to help define that.
Security threat. Yeah, security threat.
Okay, and how in terms of why would we think this, the general concern, this is be everybody in the overall story, would be how things are changing or progress?
Well, this Timoshev threatens both sides, or may bring security for the FBI or threat for the KGB.
And is it real or fantasy? I mean, you saw that in that first scene with the FBI, where we find out about who this guy is, and you even have a guy who's that's just that's imaginary. That's like ridiculous.
Yeah. What, the first scene at the FBI headquarters?
You're right, where they bring you're bringing in the new guy.
It's a payday,
right,
for these ex-agent KGB people. They come in, they do a dog and pony show. They get a lot of money, but
and that's when they introduce the idea. Oh yeah, they say there are these all these sleeper cells all over the United States. Like, it's like he didn't say a fantasy, but that's nice.
But also when his wife said, started teasing him, started mocking him for being suspicious.
No, this is at the FBI.
Well, I know, but but the same FBI guy.
Oh,
when he starts
on.
suspecting,
right.
Philip.
This guy seems to be. There's something strange about him. Oh yeah, the postman, the gardener. Yeah. That's fact fantasy type thing, right. All right. And then how things are changing. How do we? I mean, you need to be explicit.
And as they were mentioning, Reagan is now president, and the Russians see things go. The Russians at least see things going downhill, and certainly the FBI who sees an acceleration of, when they are suspecting that this, that this sleeper cell operation isn't, is going, then they, things are obviously going in a particular direction. We're, as he said, we are now at war.
Right. It's no longer a Cold War, he said.
It's not a Cold War anymore. So it clearly seems that people are concerned with the fact that things are getting more intense.
Well,
in terms of the conflict between the two superpowers.
Even her handler says you're going to have to start taking more risks.
Right.
Things are starting to get worse.
Things are going to
Well,
I mean that could be a signpost.
The handler also says that his own position is being threatened back home. And he might not be able to cover for her.
Right.
Also, I think that they're all concerned with the progress, or the Russian side is concerned with the progress of what happened with getting Timoshev back to motherland.
Right. They're not making the kind of progress that they're losing. They're losing ground, and they're the thing that they've taken decades to set up is might become at risk. And if we look over here, that would mean our intrepid Philip would be concerned with doing. And I think that you see that. That's what I think. If you look at him, and when he sees the guy ogling his daughter, that's his concern with what are you doing? This is a 13-year-old girl, and so like, how old is the girl? He didn't say it, but how old is the girl that you're with? As he's kind of groping her and such.
But he is very actively involved in keeping the family a unit. He plays these games with the ice cream. And he does something with pancakes. To talk to them about the planets. Things like that. So he is actively involved in doing the family stuff.
Yeah.
Going to the mall. Let's do the family stuff.
No, that's excellent. That's a great
playing with Or maybe that's another episode. I was going to say playing hockey with this kid. Is that in the pilot? I'm getting confused.
Well, he talks about. He says they have to go.
Okay.
Right.
Oh yeah, because it's Sunday morning. Yeah, they're going to.
And then if you look at Elizabeth and her concern of playing a role, of the two of them, she seems to be the one having a hard time keeping up the role because she's, there are more and more instances where she's having a hard time just playing wifey and playing
American
and playing and then playing like, oh, it's just okay that we've captured this guy who raped me when I was a trainee. I've got to play the stoic Russian, agent, even though this guy I want to kill.
The example of he once again doing the family stuff. He goes with his kid to the Apollo Soyuz thing with Stafford the astronaut, and then when she gets a spin, puts her spin.
Oh,
on
right,
it,
right.
She says, "Oh well, just getting in space isn't an achievement. Screw going to the moon."
Right. Yeah, so.
And then in their relationship, impulsive responses, which I think is great because it starts off and everything is really calm between the two, and they're playing their roles, and it gets sort of more and more au naturel. The responses they're not guarded. Because everything was so guarded to begin with, and
There's even that great moment early on where he goes to have a pour him some coffee, and her impulse is just not to do it.
right
They have no
rapport,
connection, no.
right, and and then him, I don't know exactly the move he did, but breaking his neck or breaking the trachea, yeah.
Well, also in the flashback, he starts to caress her hair, and
Oh, right.
I'm not ready yet, and so, okay.
Yeah, and whereas at the end, they're all very
only
touchy and
Well, she reaches for his hand as a partner.
right. She's not
She doesn't give him the cold shoulder like she did earlier in the
right.
night before, 2 nights ago.
Yeah, she seems to be the one who's the ice princess, and he's very touchy, feely, warm, and the relationship sort of melts and they become closer. Okay, well that's good. All right, excellent. So I will choose that. So we said how things are changing. So now let's pop down and look down in the overall story. We've got fact, fantasy, security, threat, and then the elements within those. Do any one or two of the issues stand out? Fact or security or fantasy or threat? And then you can look to underneath it if any of those are helpful, the elements.
Would it be security?
Okay, and
Because they're sleeper agents in the US, so they need the security of keeping that cover. And then right at the end, they manage to. The FBI guy looks in the trunk and there's no body there, so the illusion is contained. The security is good at the end of the episode. They maintain security, as it were. They maintain their cover.
I would go with the flip side of threat because, Timoshev is a threat. Timoshev being kidnapped is a threat to the FBI. She says that having him at the house is a threat to the family. And there's probably some more threats as the overall. Well, the president being elected, Reagan being elected, the Russians see as a big threat. And Reagan thinking that the Russians are getting away with murder on U.S. territory, literally, he sees that as a threat.
In the threat of their new neighbors.
all right. What about
just in terms of the group of four underneath?
Yeah.
I I mean, I could make an argument. I could see instances of theory and hunch, especially with the neighbor guy. But I don't know, cause and effect, resultant process. As a group, to me, I mean, obviously, they are worried about the cause and effect of this defector staying on the loose, and I don't know.
What about this group under fact? Remember, you've got proven, unproven, accurate, and non-accurate. I'm just going with what I got here. I'm not going with any logic. The reason I think it might be this, although I do like security and threat a hell of a lot better than fact and fantasy. But remember, this fact and fantasy for me works as a good pair for this episode, because in this episode, the FBI doesn't know if there really is if there's a there yet. That's kind of what they're trying to figure out. Is there something going on here or not? Is this a Russian agent that was stabbed during the abduction of the turncoat, or is this just some drifter who got stabbed in an alleyway? They don't know what the facts are, and they can't tell if this story that the defector is giving is a bunch of hooey. Is it all fantasy, or is this really going on? And clearly, the family wants the facts not to get out. They don't want any. They want to keep those facts away from the FBI. They want to keep that guy who knows all of that really important information away from the FBI. That is their most vital concern, even if it means killing him. That's not their preferred way. It's not their boss's preferred way, but that is more important that they kill him than the FBI getting that information. Even though they have some of it, they kind of know the gist of it, because he had to sort of convince their boss or one of the guys who was bringing him in that, and obviously authorized payment, only $300,000, not $3 million, or $100,000, not $3 million.
No, I think he got $3 million, and the $100,000 was for coming back to talk more in the lecture.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yeah.
For lectures.
Oh, I see. Okay, I just thought he was overinflating it, but yeah, the reaction to it afterward. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, whereas if they can, what seems to me is that they can, as a solution, if they can leave it with either that it's either unproven that this is this doesn't necessarily exist, or maybe there is proof. I don't know. I'm not sure exactly how it. Go ahead.
Would non-accurate be a better solution?
Possibly. I mean, one of them is the symptom, one's the problem, one's the symptom.
I like unproven if you're going to go with something like that, just because it's really unproven is, to me, always been not proved enough.
I would say only because I'm thinking of her as the influence character.
Yes.
If her problem is accurate, like she tolerates everything, and then at the end she's lying to the general, that would be non-accurate.
Right. So that would be proven as the problem.
No, I would say like her problem.
Oh, her problem would be accurate. So his problem. So he's steadfast.
So
oh, right.
His symptom response would be shared with the symptom response here.
Right. So
you would have a theory.
You're saying that the overall problem is accurate?
Yeah.
Okay, so that...
Because that's driving everybody's...
That would give him... So he'd be driven by theory, which is we become Americans.
Is this
Let's see.
if I could?
Well, I'm just going straight off of her. Because at the end, her change is... No, all that stuff I told you before about him, that was not accurate.
It's just a phase. Yeah.
Right.
Which is not true. It's
Well, that doesn't matter though, right? It's a non-accurate issue. It's not a truth issue. So for him, that makes our main character.
Okay.
We still can choose. We haven't. Okay, so if we look at our story engine,
Oh, I thought
we haven't determined change or steadfast. So if we make him the steadfast character, which is what we are tentatively
He's driven by theory, which is great.
right, so that puts him at so the two of them that we had a sort of iffy about were the resolve and the problem solving style, and so those are the two that were left by answering the ones that we knew. Those are the ones that were still flexible, so that's good, I think. And let's just, for the sake of argument, let's make it holistic and let's look at what we have here. So, our overall story, the catalyst of threat. Okay, that works really well because then that means what drives the story forward faster is threat, and what brings it, the inhibitor, is enlightenment. And now, if you again thinking of it from the Russian spy perspective, so when they get sort of insights into the neighbors or to any of the pieces going on that forces them to slow down. Like, well, okay, they're looking for us, so we don't want to bring it to the Russian embassy, and we can't go to, all these things. They get those insights into that. It's like, okay, we got to just sit back and sit tight, and that's exactly what that would mean. And the benchmark of the future is like, what do we want to be? And that's where I think you get the, the somewhat of the argument. As Russian spies, let's just defect, or we can't defect. What's going to happen with the family? But it's also the FBI is concerned about where is this going. Their boss is concerned. Is this whole thing going to be exposed? And then if we look at our main character, activity, doing, which we knew because we chose it, and an issue of wisdom. Meaning he's concerned with, is this the wise move to make?
Yeah.
Is this what's right for us, right for me, my family? Which
is counterpointed by enlightenment, which I like. Because the enlightenment of let's put family first and let's but that's a counterpoint to what's really the wise thing to do here.
Right.
And that was my question, just quickly. The overall story as far as fact and fantasy, and I see it's this critical flaw fantasy and issue of fact, that kind of ties in with the marriage thing as well as the overall story, right?
Right. It's linking them together, yeah.
Okay, because he's kind of like in a fantasy that maybe we can have a real American life.
Yeah, maybe we can defect and it'll all just work out perfectly.
and we won't make the same mistakes.
Right. Look at the trunk. Look at the trunk.
Well, yeah, we'll be more careful. Like the guy in Spain who got picked up by the FBI, or got picked up there. So why was he vacationing in Spain?
Well, because he didn't think that they were onto him. And he's an oligarch. He's very, very rich. So again, with a symptom of proven, that means, the problem is that this has been shown to be true. And then, okay, so we just have to show that it's not true. Oh, okay, then there's no there. It's like, what kind of car is this? Oh, this is it? It's like all of these things. It's like, oh no, that's not it. That's an example. So by unproving it, it resolves that symptom. And what's interesting though is that you see the problem is theory, which again is sort of like this abstract, the idea. It's almost like the beginning of the FBI. The guy comes in, he says, yes, I've got this guy and he's got this plan, theory, whatever, that says this is what the Russians are doing. And it's like, well, okay, it's interesting, but what do we do with this? How do we make this work? This is, it's motivating, and if you think of also, because that's over here, that That's where he is. And Hunch, this is for our main character. Sorry. So our main character, if he goes with, well, he's a steadfast character though, right? Okay, so he never actually goes there. But if he played with, rather than, he's got this idea that this is how our world should work, and if we play it right, we can have everything. We can have the family, and we can have our base spies, and everything will be okay. She's a little more in a little less theoretical, and he's concerned with not only gain, but I think if you look at obtaining as in loss, getting rid of. We've got, what am I going to lose, or the $3 million? We're going to get all this money.
But it's the family. It's not losing the family.
Right. Yeah, he's concerned about keeping things as opposed to losing them. But there's a threat there. Okay, and we see with the relationship. Scroll down there. So it's fixed attitude. Again, the clash of attitudes about. If we're going to make this marriage work, yes, there are rules, but we have to break some rules. You have to break an egg to make an omelet type of thing. You could easily see the husband, Philip sort of saying that. She's like, no, we have, job first, family second. We talked about the concern of impulsive responses already. The issue of value. I think that sort of like which values are we going by? Are we going by our Russian values or our American values?
Or what value am I to you?
Oh yeah,
In the marriage.
well that's true.
Yeah, what do we mean to each other?
Right, which of course is sort of undefinable at the beginning because he certainly doesn't seem to know exactly what his value is to her. And she, and they become more valuable over time to each other. The symptom, again, of proven, we were talking about proven before, is like, okay, so where do we see this in the relationship? As being the apparent source of conflict.
Proven that you're not attracted to me, or it's proven.
Oh, right, okay. And right, we were talking about, you mentioned that earlier. And then the response is, oh, well, let me prove you wrong. Unproven. Let me unring that bell. And the problem of effect. Oh, I think if you look at, again, as a couple, they're supposed to have sort of a particular effect. We're supposed to look like a typical American couple. But we're not typical Americans, and so we're not having a relationship that's real. We're having one that's manufactured.
Being married for the mission,
Right.
Instead of being married for love.
Right. So the effects come off as being not genuine. They're not really. The effects are sort of a little forced.
Until
Until they kind of go through the catharsis of
kill someone.
you killed him for me.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
love you, honey.
Right? That's the cause, right?
Well, yeah, no, and then he goes in and he gets rid of the cause of that. Right? She has basically she's had this this rape in her background, who's connected with this guy, and who's clearly causing a really big problem for her in their relationship. And then of course he gets rid of that, and it doesn't go immediately all lovey-dovey, but pretty quickly. Catalyst of worry. So again, they're concerned. They're trying to make sure that they cover all their, cover everything. They didn't want to get caught, but they're worried about their friend, which again creates more problem. Worried about the kids. He is worried about the kids. She's not so much worried about them.
In catalyst under a relationship story point, it's a catalyst to what?
It moves the relationship forward faster.
And by forward, you mean in a
Well, in this
positive
case,
sense?
because this is a growing relationship, yes.
Okay, if it was a
So his worry
deteriorating-
for her moves the story faster. You see how the relationship is stunted and stressed, and then he finds out that there's this backstory that this guy has done something apparently really bad to her, and his worry for his wife, basically sets him off, and he does what a doer does, and that moves the relationship along nicely. So that's the motivator for moving it faster toward the solution. And then the inhibitor is thought, or what are you thinking, or I'd say being inconsiderate in some cases, or overthinking things. She's very calculated in their relationship, and he's not. I don't know if she's thoughtless, but she just seems to be very. I think she just thinks about things too much.
She's clinical.
Yeah, very
He's
clinical.
reactive.
Right. And of course, the benchmark is passion, and it's passionless at the beginning, particularly on her side, completely. But as a relationship, it's passionless, and then it develops and grows, and ultimately ends up with a car job.
Just lost your
What?
adult rating.
What does that mean? You'd have to have seen it to understand that. And then, yes.
Does the catalyst in the OS function the same way, where it's pushing it towards success or failure depending on which one it is?
Yeah, it moves the story faster toward the
outcome.
Toward the end. Yeah,
Okay.
to the resolution. And just as the inhibitor puts on the brakes, and and they're really useful if you want to, explore that part of the story and move it along fast, and then put the brake on because you're going to go visit some other part of the story. So that way, because if you go to the overall story and you throw in a whole bunch of catalyst and cut away, your audience is going to expect that it's continuing on at the speed at which it was going before. You don't there's an avalanche coming down, and then we cut away, and in 5 minutes later we come back, and the avalanche is still coming. It's like, no. It would already have come down, So you have to. That's one of the reasons why you want to make sure you have it both ways. Not only to make it more interesting, but it naturally things slow things down and things speed things up. But it's also great for story reading technique to just throw in, if you're going to step away from a particular through line for any particular amount of time, dropping in that inhibitor in there will really make sure that nobody expects it to really move much while they're not looking. And then throw a catalyst right at the beginning of when you come back in, and we're back going, So it sort of livens it right back up.
Can you do the same thing with the other through lines for unique ability and critical flaw?
Yes, in terms of their relationship, in terms of the effects of one on the other, yes. So with the main character, the difference is that the main character's unique ability ties him or her to the overall story. So it makes them more or less, with unique ability or critical flaw, more or less likely to affect the story goal. And then the influence character, unique ability, and critical flaw have to do with their effect on essentially forcing the main character to deal with their personal issues. So driving the main character toward their development, whatever that is, either steadfast or change. And then the last part we have here is the influence character story points. So we have her in manipulation. Again, I think it's better to think of it as psychology, because she's not really a terribly much manipulator in the family. It doesn't seem, but it does look like she's the one who's haunted. She's the one who's got the baggage, the psychological baggage. which is why, and she's also a change character, but both of those two things would make her feel a little more like she might be a main character, just because she's got mental problems. And she's a change character, which in Hollywood frequently means that they're the ones who they are the main character, particularly the fact that she's the change character. Concern of playing a role, I mean, that I think is really important, as we were talking about. She's got the guy who raped her, and she's finding it very difficult to maintain the role that she has, keep her cool, keep her calm, keep her wits.
Plus, it seems like she's pretty okay with sleeping with other people to get information, and that maybe has an impact on him.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's
Right.
true. Yeah,
Listens
we had
to
that very
this-
first scene, and then him
recording.
listening to the tape.
Yeah.
No, excellent point. Yeah.
No, but she's not happy with that. When she gets back in the country.
No. But remember, the point of the influenced character is to try to impact the main character. In this instance, ultimately it changes her rather than him. But the process has that influence on him. It has that impact on him and her.
Like what she's willing to do. Like,
Yeah.
just from this episode, it doesn't seem like he would be willing to do the same kind of thing.
No.
Or he would have trouble with it, where it seems like she's
Well, she
totally
seems
okay.
She seems to be on tape. We see
Yeah.
her as
Yeah.
having an issue with it.
But from his point
Also,
of view.
she's having sex with other men and clearly not him.
What if she is the main character? What if we got it all wrong? What if-
Well, this wouldn't be the story form for it.
Yeah. But, like, it opens on her. She's the one who changes. It's Kerry Russell. She's the named actress in the show. You know, and she's the one who has a relationship with the boss. You know, maybe we got it wrong just because she's the cold Russian and we don't see the turmoil in her. That maybe she's actually
Could be. We can do it. Let's see. We can do a real quick story form on that. Let's just finish this and then let's just switch it around. Because it may fit better. You never know. I mean, that's the nice thing is it doesn't take a long time once you kind of have the big stuff down. It doesn't take long to do another story form. And problem, issue of knowledge. What does she know? Well, she knows about the guy who raped her.
It's also like what she holds true, like Mother Russia and all that.
Right.
Whereas he's dealing with
She knows what will happen
what's
to them.
the wisdom and what's the wisest choice for them.
Oh, right. But here's
Her thing is like, no, I know this is what
right.
this is who we are. This is what's
Well,
going
she's
on.
a fixed attitude, so it's like these are the rules. This is what I know.
Yeah.
You know, I know. You know, we're Russian, and
And there's no thinking about it.
Right.
You don't think about it. You just
Well, she,
know what
you
you
know
want.
what? There's a scene in the kitchen where she's looking at the knife and she's looking at herself, and that's as
That's
deep into
better.
her emotion as we get, but that's real.
Well, she's withholding knowledge, so that's better.
yeah. Well, all I thought was, do I stab him or do I not stab him? I don't know if that's what it's supposed to be about, but it's like,
Well, no,
But
she
that-
looks at
that's-
herself, and then she looks at herself in the trunk scene. She's really studying who she is. She's got anxiety. She's got like
Yeah,
questions.
does she know herself? Does she really know herself? I mean, it is a thematic conflict of knowledge versus thought.
yeah.
And those are the scenes where you see it play out. You know, she actually starts thinking rather than just falling back on what she knows. So as a changed character, she is arcing toward that. You know, actually thinking about who she is and what she wants, and desire is in there
Right.
too.
Right.
Also,
It's
the
a unique
relationship to
ability.
him and her impact on him, it's like, how well does he know her? And they don't really know each other. He doesn't.
Well, they seem to play that up more than I think it probably really would have been. I mean, I think
Well, he doesn't know anything about the real her. Her past, anyway.
right.
They're not allowed to.
Right.
He doesn't know who she is. And that's a huge impact on him.
That's true, actually. Yeah.
So unique ability of desire. Well, I think that the fact that she's withholding her desire from him that she finds that she does not desire him is the thing that really bugs him the most.
Yeah.
And
it says you don't find me attractive.
right, and where her critical flaw of worth, I think she.
Oh, there's lots of there.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. You guys are supposed
Well,
to be
her
doing
own
this.
self-worth, and then also country's worth more than family to her.
Right, and that undermines her effect on him.
Yeah.
And then, of course, for her, it's all about it's a question of changing one's nature in terms of the benchmark, where it's not even a possible consideration at the beginning. She slowly warms to the fact that maybe is really more changed than she had thought, or as she changes. And I just one other thing I want to look at this. This is a good story form, but let's look at the signposts. Right, overall story. So we have the past, how things are changing, the future, and the present.
There were a lot of flashbacks, but they're more in the.
So yeah, the order of this doesn't grab me.
No.
I mean, it's
Well,
okay.
I can see the present being the final signpost.
Well, here
in
you
that,
have the memories and the relationship have much more heavily in the past. In the fourth act, that's where you have both of them when we met and all that stuff.
And I like
Contemplation works for signpost 3 in the relationship because you have the arguments about how you weigh the factors in coming to your decisions, and that affects their relationship as to are they, she
Actually,
turn them
past
over
is
or
good
not.
there.
yeah.
In the past, of course, the defector is all about revealing the past,
And then how things are changing is when they talk about Reagan, right?
right?
And then the future is FBI guy moves in across the street. And then,
Right, and maybe we can, get
I think
defect and live someplace else.
But I like the present as the final signpost because it's like, okay, for now, we're okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's like in the present moment, I'm not going to shoot the guy. He didn't find anything. I'm going to let him go. That final scene, I think, is
Well,
part of that for now.
Right, and
We're
the end
okay.
of that, and the end of the future is essentially dumping the body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so that part's set, and we just need to get everything else back in order, and then we're good.
Yeah, and live and go back to living in the present moment,
Right.
being the family, being the neighbor.
Okay, let's see, playing a role.
Well, that's what she's
You
doing
don't
in the
like
very
it
first
'cause it's
scene.
holistic. That's why.
Hmm?
It looks weird.
Yes, that's true.
The progression
Yeah.
just looks
So,
like
I have a
attaining,
question.
doing, learning, understanding looks weird.
in regards to the signpost on
It's like,
playing
what?
a role, the inciting incident really doesn't start until they're dealing with Timoshev. And she's playing the role at getting the information before the inciting incident starts. But that's still okay for the signpost?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because they don't have
It's
they don't
all
have
set
to
up.
be all aligned. In fact, they usually are, staggered.
Okay.
And then we have the main character doing. So that's a X pattern, a Z pattern for the overall story. I think we're all changing. X pattern for the relationship. That's why this is a weird one. And an X pattern for the influence character. Wow, 3 X patterns and a Z pattern? That's kind of weird. So there's like a big ass midpoint for everything except for the overall story. I don't know. It doesn't feel right. But
That's because you're a boy.
it is because I'm a boy. Okay, so let's just try.
And the midpoint, here as I could figure it out, was Stan moving in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's a pretty big switch. Yeah, there is a big switch. Now let's try a new one. And so we'll say this is with her as the main character. So change. Yes, beer, linear.
Still action,
Action, option lock, success, good. Overall story, situation. Okay, that's right.
Well, don't you want the OS to be the same if we're going to just?
It is.
Yeah, so
It is.
just pick the same one. So just pick progress and
Right. Progress.
Well, can we look at that?
Yeah, now you do.
No.
Well. Okay. Well, what was it? What was hers?
Accurate was her problem.
Right. Well, do we want to stay with the same problem?
Sure.
All right.
Well, just to see.
All right. So it's very similar. We're going to find his unique abilities and the catalyst and rhetorical flaws. The benchmark is different.
Right, because it'll change.
How does he have influence on her, though?
Well, let's see.
How does he
His would be his skills have an influence on her, and his desire is
It's
critical
interesting.
flaw.
It's interesting how the critical flaw for the is the same as in the other story form.
For her.
Well, no, influence character critical flaw desire is the same as influence critical flaw desire in the other story.
The other one is her unique ability.
Because
that's the unique ability.
Changes steadfast determine the algorithm for the critical flaws and inhibitors. So it's interesting how it ends up in the same place.
And value, effect, cause, proven, unproven, proven, confidence.
What were you waiting?
The relationship confidence versus threat.
Well, she's changed because she needs to start something within herself in order to change.
No, I got that, but it's like, what are we waiting for to start in the OS, just as a parity check?
So yeah, I would not assume the problem is going to be the same. I mean, I would probably go down and start looking at, but this is the closest it could be by keeping the elements.
What are the signs?
Similar.
What if we look at the issue again?
Well, hold on a second. Let me just look at signposts. Okay, so this is a lot different. Present, past, future, how things are changing. Like that. No, she would be playing a role, changing one thing, conceiving an idea, developing a plan.
It's the same.
That's the same. It still feels weird.
That was where you talked about how you would see it in the OS too.
Relationship innermost desires. Signs for us.
Yeah,
I thought that was brilliant.
I think that'd be I mean, that one we could,
use it.
I wouldn't say that one. That one's totally wrong.
Pardon?
That one's wrong. Try changing the problem. Maybe.
It doesn't all work.
Pardon me?
Do you want to try changing the problem just to see if there's a difference?
Sure, we can do that. I mean, might as well.
Wait, I
So
think
let's
you
undo that.
Wait. So
What?
that's the good one. You switch the story unless you meant to do.
Yeah. This is the
This is the good one.
The good one.
This is the right one.
He cast the vote already.
This is the accurate one.
That's the one that we were working on, yeah.
I just said it's
Did
accurate.
you say that?
The good one. All
Can
right.
we use the growth to argue that the first one was right because we're waiting for something to stop in the overall story? So
All right.
I know that's not in the theory, but back when
Well, yeah, it
Sandy, is it?
What? Stop and start?
Well, I just mean that
As a steadfast, you're waiting for something to stop.
yeah.
As a change, then it comes from the inside. So that would mean, but I think it also, if hers is a start, or is it stop?
Start.
Hers is start, his is stop.
Yeah, well, I think she having a hole in the heart. I think
That works too.
that works as well. See, where you're going to find the difference between the two perspectives is in primarily, it's going to be in the catalyst, unique ability, and benchmark. and then the plot sequence is going to definitely be completely different. I mean, those are going to be, if you just switch it as without really story forming it separately, like we saw, a lot of it's going to be the same, but those are the ones that are going to be different. There are only about 11 story points that are different if you just do it without really thinking about it as a different story. If you story form it separately, then the ones that are available to you to change would be the issue, problem, and the problem quad, and then the obviously the catalyst or the unique ability, critical flaw, and benchmark. And I think it's generally not a great idea to. It's better to look at the to do a story forming by picking those as opposed to just sort of picking the problem element. That may not feel quite right. But the overall story is the overall story, and if that's going to play, that's usually the way you want to do it then. So it's kind of what we've seen is that there's very little difference except in the act order stuff, and then.
Curiously, what does it do to the signpost? Back to the original one. What would it do to the signpost order if you change the driver?
The driver. No effect.
Oh.
Yeah,
Is
she
it?
She's.
Oh, she's. Oh, it affects her. Oh.
Conceiving at the end. I think conceiving is a lot better for Act 4. Obtaining, he goes.
That's the same.
Goes and protects his family or protects.
That's the
Beats the
same.
shit out of
I don't know about obtaining being for
He obtains a real marriage.
Yeah, well, contemplation relationship.
So, I mean, he's talking about obtaining. It's the third act when he's really talking about a lot of the obtaining stuff, the money and losing the family and all that kind of stuff. Not after they dump the body. It didn't seem that that's what he didn't. I mean, that just from the signpost point of view. I'm not sure I story formed necessarily from that, but so developing a plan.
But the other way, he's obtaining in Act 1, which is.
Well, remember he's gathering. He's. I don't know. I'm not sure.
That one there. Sorry, I'm new at this. The relationship story. Is that relating to the main character?
The relationship between the main and influence characters. So this is about
but heavier on the main one, or
no,
okay,
no. It's about the relationship
between the two of them.
Right. So it's about the marriage,
Okay.
the arranged marriage or the marriage of convenience.
Yeah.
Not about Elizabeth and not about.
Yeah, because that doesn't finishing on contemplation doesn't seem right for me for that the relationship to finish on that.
And the other one ends up where? We just changed it in this one. That's right, we changed it in this one. Yeah. I mean, because the thing is that its memory is so strong in Act 4. It has the scene where they first, they first meet.
Is that 4 though? Or is it?
Yeah, it's the last act, and then the scene where they land in America is right before the scene where the guy comes snooping and checking out the car.
Yeah, in that case.
So I'm just saying. I mean, again, you could story weave it so that it's not following this order, so that's not necessarily. That's why I'm less concerned about the signpost unless it's like absolutely has to be a certain way.
So, Chris, when,
Yes.
when we did Stalag 17, Stalag, we had trouble deciding like which was the main character.
Yes.
And one of the arguments that Sandy made was that if you saw the growth in the OS and it matched, that was a good parity check for.
You saw the.
I'm not saying
Well,
this
the stop start, even though it's attributed to the main character, tends to echo out into the overall story. So that the OS tends to have a negative feel or a positive. Either the problem is encroaching or we're waiting for something to stop. Or
Well, no, it's either we're chasing it or it's chasing us.
Yeah,
That's the difference.
right. And it tends to echo, with the main character growth, and basically that was one of those things that helped us decide.
But it's not
to
the
flip
same.
main.
But it's not the same thing. It's
I
a
know.
combination. So it's not just start and stop.
Right, it's start and stop combined with I forget the other thing.
Yeah, I can't
But
remember either.
but still, that's one of the things that
Huh?
that led us
Oh, good or
to
bad,
flip
right.
this main and impact character on that one, and it started to fit and started to feel right. It's just another way of thinking that can help you sometimes break a tie.
And it seems like it worked here, and it also worked when I did the election analysis for Trump. That was how I picked him to be the main character.
Okay.
So I just,
Well, you can't. I mean, if you're doing something like that, picking him the main character is you're defining it. You're not. You're identifying him, and it's almost in that regard. You're saying, I want to prove for this. I want to understand this character. So that's one of the reasons why you might identify the main character when you're doing a non-fictional work.
right.
Which is different when you're doing an analysis. You have to look and see what you've got. Which is, I mean, it's similar,
Yeah.
but it's dictated by someone else.
Like I guess in this story, like I would pick this as being like more of a stop story. Using
It
that
feels
same
it just
analysis.
feels more stop. It just
Well,
feels
well,
like stop.
Like we as the audience are waiting for.
Right. It
There's
does.
there's a body. We're waiting for that body to stop. Of course, that part of that's being the situation.
Well, but that's all part of it.
So yeah.
No, I mean that's the nature of you're picking the relationship of the main character to the overall story, and as a steadfast character, it is the sense that you're waiting for. Essentially, you're waiting for the feds to stop looking for you.
Right.
The Russians are waiting for the feds to stop looking, or our Russian guy.
But doesn't it work for change too? Because in Stalag 17, it's a change main character.
Well, it can. Well, no, but change is different. Change comes from the inside, not the outside. You can't say I'm waiting for something to stop for a change character. See, by definition, it's coming from the inside. So you're not waiting for something external. You're basically, that's the chip on the shoulder or hole in the heart. Because you are the problem exists within you, and or within the main character, and the main character adjusts to accommodate the rest of the world. Whether or not it works and whether or not they should or not, that's irrelevant. But that's just by definition, by being a change character, they modify themselves as opposed to having the world modify itself and coming to them. Does that make sense?
I definitely get that. That's what the theory is. I guess it's just that it seems to work.
Well, the question is, did it fit your understanding of the way you wanted it to fit, or did it fit? Because it doesn't fit the theory. So, I mean, the Dramatica theory. So it may be something you may be onto something but it wouldn't be exhibiting growth. It'd be exhibiting something else.
Yeah.
So, which is very possible. There are other dynamics that you can look to. The problem is whether or not they're consistent with the rest of the story form. and that's why I usually don't commit to the things
I
that
see.
aren't these questions, because I can easily see instances where you don't have the influence character be a beer if the main character is a doer.
Right. Yeah.
You know, it's not a if one is always this, the other. The only one that's like that is the main and influence. However, there will be a character. There will always be both choices or all choices are always going to be
Present in the story.
present in the story.
Yes. Gotcha.
Where it shows up, you know, it tends to fall, I think, in films along the simplest lines because they just don't have a whole lot of real estate.
Is there a way, like in something like this, to tell how many? Somebody was talking about story goals earlier. How many layers there are to the serialization of it?
Of the series?
Yeah.
So I have no idea. I've never
What's
seen
the-
it.
It's
So the-
in 5 now.
Well, there's five
Years.
series
Seasons.
seasons. Thank you. 5 seasons, but
What do you think?
is an entire season one story? Yeah. Okay. So, and then the question is, how many other of those characters? I mean, my guess is you probably follow a lot of the personal lives of, obviously, the neighbors you do, the FBI that lived across the street, I imagine. Probably
And
several
their
others.
relationship with the kids, I'm sure. I haven't seen any of it, but you could see that being set
Well,
up.
certainly later on. Otherwise, you're going to run out of material pretty fast.
Yeah, it's
You get all of
that
it.
really the story really blossoms later because I mean you got these 2 kids and it's like how are these kids living under this lie, and of course it blossoms into the toward the end of the first and into the second season.
Doesn't the boy find out? I forget. I saw a few
How about we
episodes.
don't-
out
Or we
Really
don't
wanna
talk about
know?
Yeah, let's not.
I'm not gonna binge
Let's-
watch it. I've
You should.
yeah, I've
It's
seen,
it's good. It's it's not a Breaking Bad, but it's really well written.
Could
and it's just
Could the main
pregnant with
character be
possibilities.
marriage and the incident character be arranged
Anything else,
marriage?
Sandy, you want to reveal that you think is hard?
What?
Could the main character be their marriage and the incident character be the
isn't the
arranged
girl
marriage?
really a boy?
Put it through the thing to see,
Okay, hold
because
on.
that's the main thing for me that's going on.
Well, okay. I'm not sure what you mean by the difference between marriage and the arranged marriage. I'm not sure what's the difference.
So that for me seems to be the main things that are clashing in this story, as opposed to the characters themselves are layers of it. But the 2 main things are their marriage and their arranged marriage.
Well, I think that's the conflict in the marriage.
Right.
Is that sort of traditional marriage and the business marriage.
Yeah.
She's the business marriage, he wants the traditional marriage. And that's why there is at the heart of each of the through lines is conflict.
Right.
And it's going to appear, really there's one inequity at the heart of the story. And then when you have these 4 different contexts to explore it, they show up in different ways. In the relationship, the conflict is going to be in the relationship. In this story, it's the nature of the relationship that is in conflict. He wants the relationship to be one way, she wants it to be another, and it's based on principles. She's got a very principled understanding of here's what our relationship is. We have these rules to live by. These are the priorities, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And he's more like a little more organic, and it's like, no, a relationship is 2 people. We're formed a family. We're together in this. It's a team, and it's personal, and that's the clash. Those sort of 2 ways of seeing defining what marriage is.
Yeah.
Which is also why it's in the fixed attitude domain, because a fixed attitude domain is a clash of ideas, ideologies, fixations, prejudice, bias, all of those, essentially what one thinks. And since it's a relationship, it would be defined as there is a conflict in the relationship because of the differences in how the members of the relationship think.
Yeah.
And what they hold to be true or whatever, as opposed to it's what they think, not how they think. That would be a psychology story. So it's dysfunctional thinking. You know, that's like the dysfunctional family, right? You know, which you have psychological problems. You know? Game playing, all that crap. That's psychology. But the fixed attitude one, it's the clash of ideologies.
Yeah.
And rules is a way of, rules are essentially ideology, ideas.
I think for me it's just because I'm new to it, and for me it's an algorithm. It's a creativity algorithm, and for me when I'm playing with the algorithm, putting those two things, switching it around and putting those two there, and then seeing what it would lead to and the other, what it would dish out, and then perhaps I could go, so what those answers there help me to actually create the characters as a result of that.
Well then, whatever works for you, I'm serious.
Yeah.
If one of the best ways to think of Dramatica is that it's, especially the software, is just think of it as a tool.
Right.
And if you can use it in a non-traditional way that inspires you and gets you to start thinking about your story in new and fresh ways that work for you, fantastic.
Yeah, cause I think it's because I don't understand how to use it at all. I'm sort of like trying to go. Yeah.
Right. Well, there's an awful lot in it. I mean, that's the problem. There's just so much in it, and answering the questions, as great as that is, that's the easy part. Answering what you know, that's great. It's a good way to organize what you know about your story, and it helps you clarify that. But the real power of what Dramatica does, beyond that organizational aspect, is that it will then tell you how the rest of it should fit together.
Yeah.
That you didn't tell it. Much of it you probably already know. But if it can corroborate what you already know intellectually or gut sense that this is the way it's supposed to be, then it can give you allow you to be more confident in making those decisions creatively when you're going to spend a lot of time expressing that.
I think too that the reason for me, at least why it feels very much about a real marriage versus a fake marriage, is because the relationship through line is very heavily weighted.
Yeah, it's really heavy.
I mean, I think it's really the focus of the pilot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it has a lot of real estate. So I think that just gives it that kind of fake, real, dynamic. That's what it's about.
Yeah,
it's right. And the overall story kind of plays second,
like you're saying,
fiddle. It's not nearly as important because it's just a setup.
Yeah.
It's just to say, hey, folks, things aren't the way they used to be.
Right.
Yeah.
And let's introduce a whole bunch of characters.
Yeah. Things are changing.
Yep. And that's really all it's set up to do. It's setting up all the potentials.
Yeah.
But it does it in a way that structurally it satisfies what's necessary and does it economically enough that gives you enough time to really spend on the characters and the relationship. So in that way, I think it's nicely done. I don't remember who suggested it. Yeah, very good job.